In Lesson F, we're going to calculate 15% of a number easily in our head without multiplying. 15% is a useful percentage in real life. For example, the customary tip in a restaurant is 15%. However, calculating 15% can involve a lot of work. Take a look at part A. Here, we're going to calculate 15% of 80, and these are the steps. 0 times 5 is 0. 8 times 5 is 40. Here's my placeholder. 0 times 1 is 0. 8 times 1 is 8. Add them together. Take care of the decimal places. And our final answer is 12. So 15% of 80 is 12. But that took a lot of work. Let's find an easier way. In part B, we're going to take 15% and break it up into two easier parts, 10% and 5%. And you'll see that both of these can be easy to calculate in our heads. And all we have to do is add step 1 and step 2 together, and we'll have our answer. Let's start with calculating 10% of a number. Take a look at part C. We're going to calculate 10% of 80 on paper first, then we'll learn how to do it in our head. Remember, 10% is written as 0.10 or 10 hundredths, but when you drop the trailing 0, you end up with 1/10, and that's what we have here. So let's do the work. 0 times 1 is 0. 8 times 1 is 8. I have one decimal place. Here's one decimal place. And my final answer here is 8. So 10% of 80 is 8. Now, can you figure out how to do that in your head without multiplying? Take a look at 80 and our final answer of 8. And how can we get there without multiplying? All we have to do is move the decimal point in 80 one space to the left, and we'll get our answer. So here, how do you find 10% of 80 without multiplying? Just move the decimal point one space to the left. Let's try it with our original example. Here it says find 15% of 80. So first, let's find 10%, which we can do in our head. So here's 80. Move the decimal point one place to the left, and we'll have 8 as our answer. So write it down. Next, find 5%, which is just half of 10%. So find half of 8, and that gives us 4. Now, add them together, and we have 12 as our answer. So 15% of 80 is 12. And notice that that matches our answer that we got in the original problem. Let's move on to the next box. Here, your final answer from part A was 12. And your final answer from part D was also 12. But notice how you could do the calculations in your head. Let's quickly go over 2 more examples. 15% of 500. Start off with 10%. So here's the decimal point. Move it one space to the left, and you have 50. Now take half of this to find 5%. And half of 50 is 25. Add them together, and we have 75. So 15% of 500 is 75. Here's the last example. 15% of 120. Start with 10%. Here's your decimal point. Let's move it to the left, and we have 12. Take half of this to get our 5% amount, and that is 6. Add them together, and we have 18. So 15% of 120 is 18.